When you go to any social media site, when you sign up, you create an account, you kind of expect that you're going to have a little bit of privacy there, that your private information is exactly that. Not just the information about where you live and where you're from, but conversations you have with other people online. But as it turns out, you may not actually be having a conversation with another real person who shares your interest. You might be talking to a cop who's investigating you. Or at least that's the conclusion of a new report from Criminal Legal News, written by a good friend of mine, Steve Horn. Phenomenal article here, yes. Molly. Something I never even thought of. We've seen court cases regarding social media. You can go to jail for things that you say publicly on there.
Yes.
You can be fired from your job because of it. But now it appears there's kind of underground like sting operations happening with law enforcement officials on social media. That's creepy to think about.
It is. It's like the Wild West. You don't necessarily have an expectation of privacy, is what they're finding on social media. That it's almost like, as a former courts and crime reporter myself, when you'd go out to the scene of a crime, you knew publicly where you could stand, where you couldn't, to get video or to talk to people, and you didn't want to trespass. Well, in social media, those boundaries are more blurred. If you could stand out on the street and see something, then that was basically considered public domain. You were seeing what anybody could see passing by. So you weren't trespassing. Well, in the world of social media, it's the same thing. If you're putting all your business and your pictures out there for anyone to see, whether it's the public at large or for your news feed through Facebook, Instagram, you name your social media du jour. But if you have it out there for anyone to see, then you don't have an expectation of privacy. Of course, we're talking about the Fourth Amendment. But the rub comes in, which I thought was so interesting, like you mentioned earlier about your friend writing this, is that there is some concern that what if you have an expectation of privacy because somebody's supposed to friend request you? Well, lo and behold, it could be a cop that's friend requested you, or an investigator who's looking into some other case involving you perhaps, and so they pretend to be your friend, you let them in. Now they have access, but they wouldn't have had access otherwise to potentially damaging information if they hadn't pretended to be your friend.
Well, and what's really creepy about it too is a lot of times online, people are going to speak in hyperbole. They think they're talking amongst their friends. You see a story of this just horrible human being pop up and somebody says like, God, I wish, that guy shouldn't be alive.
Right.
Okay. It's one thing to say that in front of your friends or whatever, but a police officer sees that and suddenly that little innocuous statement, you're not going to do anything. Right. You just wanted to say it because you felt the anger. That can be used against you. That's something that they can bring up in court. Say, well, okay, right here, you said he shouldn't be alive anymore. And I bring up that statement because I have seen that online.
Absolutely.
Not anybody saying they're going to make that happen, but God, this guy's a waste of oxygen and he should stop breathing. It's very creepy, and the implications for this are huge because something you say can be easily taken out of context, used in an investigation, and can ruin somebody's life just for something silly that they say without really thinking it through.
Right, and you have that example, and then you have other people who may be potentially committing crimes, and yet their civil liberties are being violated all in the name of this investigation. And so what you're finding is journalists and advocacy, civil rights advocates, and other attorneys are asking these exact same questions and bringing up these exact same points, saying, okay, well, where do we stop? Where do we draw the line? How can we legislatively keep up with technology, which happens in so many different fields of our world these days in our society, but in the world of social media, how can they pass legislation that protects people's civil rights and their expectation of privacy? How can they apply the Fourth Amendment in cases where it's applicable, and then in other cases decide, hey, well, you're on your own, you put yourself in that position, it's a free-for-all for law enforcement to try to get to the bottom of what you're doing, if you're doing anything. But it's interesting because some municipalities, including Berkeley and California, are passing laws to try to address it. They passed, they're the first city council to adopt the Surveillance and Community Safety Ordinance, something modeled after the ACLU, which essentially tries to determine if violating somebody's civil liberties outweighs, is it worth the price they're going to have to pay to bend their civil liberties to get this information?
And, there's a thin line, and I think it's a moving line, because if you have somebody that like, okay, this person's breaking the law, we've got to get the evidence to take them in. Okay, this is a bad person, we've got to get them off the streets. But that bad person actually still has rights.
That's right.
And we have law and order in this country and jurisprudence, and there's a process.
Yes.
But they always seem to want to kind of push it a little bit further to see what they can get away with. And this seems like the latest push
Agreed.
of things that they're pretty much getting away with right now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Again, it's the Wild West when it comes to social media. So be careful what you put out there if you are up to no good. Not trying to warn any criminals, but even if you aren't, like you said, you got to be careful regardless because you never know who's listening or watching.
Absolutely. It's a creepy time out there online. It's always creepy online, but it's creepier than usual.